And as you see here, folks, it says everything you ever wanted to know about project management professional certification. I like to say something right up front, which is this. And when someone contacts me about this type of training, I say, I want you to know, Mr. or Ms. Customer, this is not a Project Management 101 class. We're a webinar about the PMP. But these classes for Project Management Professional Certification, some people will hear about them and think, well, let me go to that, learn about project management, and treat it as a Project Management 101 and learn something. That's not really a good idea. Those people tend to wind up being over their heads. So the idea of the certification is it's a culmination of what you've learned. It's a capstone of what you've learned. You've either been to those classes and done project management for a number of years, and we'll talk about that, or you haven't been to classes and you learned a lot on the job. Nevertheless, by the time you come for the PMP certification, you know a lot about project management, and you're going specifically to prep yourself. These classes are prep classes. And the reason I say it's important, I'm trying to save you time and money from going to the wrong kind of a class. The instructor in a PMP prep is taking very experienced project managers and preparing them for an exam. So the focus of that class is to prepare for that exam. If you want something that's Project Management 101, you could find those too. Beginner's Project Management, Intermediate, and typically those are very exercise-oriented, team exercise-oriented, case studies, completely different class with a different focus. So don't go to the PMP looking for the team exercises. You won't find that. You will find very much of a very intense drill specifically focused on that exam, on the PMP exam. So I wanted to make that very clear. I've been teaching PMP certification since 2002. I got my PMP in 2001. Probably took me the better part of a year or so to get comfortable with teaching the various components. I didn't want to just turn around and teach it the day after I got it. That wouldn't have been fair to me or to my students. But it took me a while to get the knowledge to teach it. But I've been teaching it pretty steadily. In fact, probably 20 or 22 classes last year. And starting next week, I'm going in 5 straight weeks of teaching it. So I do it a lot. There's a lot of misinformation. This really bothers me on a personal level because a lot of people will float misinformation. I'll never do that. In fact, I'm going to give you the PMI, Project Management Institute, phone number at the end. Now, I can answer a lot of questions. I was telling Jessica before the call, but I'm never the type of person that, says, well, I think so, therefore I'll make something up. This is what people do sometimes. I never do that. If I know, I'll tell you. If I don't, I'll say, call the people at Project Management Institute who do that all day long. So, and there are some things they don't tell us, so just so you know that. So I want to clear up misconceptions that are out there in the world that you may have heard floating around as rumors, people you talk to, misinformed people. So I already did this. This is my commercial. I won't go into it again. I taught, the only thing I'll say, I have taught for a long time, starting with computers, and I've taught, I don't know how many projects, I've lost count, thousands, at least a couple thousand. Okay, so here are the things we're looking at. What are the benefits of having certified project managers, or you being one? Kind of speaking to two audiences here, the audience of managers who want to bring on certified project managers, and then the project managers themselves. How difficult is the exam? Well, it's quite difficult. I'm going to show you a typical example question. Do you have to join PMI, the Project Management Institute? No, you do not, but I'll tell you why you might want to. Can you self-study, or do you need an instructor? Well, that depends. It really depends. In fact, these two bullets, self-study versus an instructor, and in-person better than a virtual class, it depends on your learning style. I've taught every configuration. I did virtual like this for about 9 years, so I know that one too. Once you get certified, how do you keep it? You have to retake the exam. The answer is no, but I'll tell you how you do keep it together, and how much will all this cost. That also depends on the level. There's a certain cost at the Project Management Institute for the exam, but the instruction cost is anything from very inexpensive if you self-study to as much as $2,000 to $3,000 for a class, and I'll talk about that. PMP. Why would you get the Project Professional Certification anyway? Well, firstly, these aren't necessarily in any kind of an order from low to high. You'll be able to speak in a language consistent with other PMPs. Imagine you're in an organization where some people are certified, some are not. The certified ones are talking about charters, scope statements, work breakdown structures, Some of you who have studied project management will know them, some won't. But it gets everybody consistent across the board, talking the same language at the very least. What I like to tell my students too, if you actually apply what you learn, rather than just cramming for an exam, you'll be a better project manager. Now, PMI will say, well, if you become a PMP, you're a better project manager. That isn't true. But if you become a PMP and apply the lessons, I believe that to be true, because there's a lot of good stuff in that book. Having all students trained will raise the bar on project maturity in your organization. I'm speaking to probably the managers here. If you want a more mature project, and by maturity here, we mean basically the idea is what level of the organization within project management. Are they level 1, where it's what we call ad hoc, and people don't really know how to do project management, up to higher levels, where it's very well organized. Is your business more competitive? Actually, I'll give you one example. I have a company in my area who contacted me. They are a healthcare firm, and they typically bid to a governmental organization. And they've been doing this for years. They put in bids, and if they win, they do the work. Well, that organization, who shall remain nameless, contacted my customer and said the following: we love your work, but every time you bid from now on, all your project managers must be PMPs. This is as recent as a month and a half ago that I got this assignment. And in fact, just before the call, ordering material for them. So I've trained one group. I'm training 2 more groups. All 20 project managers must be PMPs, or at least the ones who work in this government project, where the government said, don't even bother bidding. So it's very common. And Project Management Institute, the group that writes the exam, their salary survey. Now, this is a very scientific survey. This wasn't just self-serving. And it's up on their website. You have to pay for it, depending on how you go after it. But you can make as much as $10,000 more U.S. in salary for PMPs. And I know there's probably some international folks here, too. It has Spain, it has France, it has India, it has all these various salary differences. And uniquely or fascinatingly, the salary increase for PMPs is greater than if you have a master's in project management. And I've taught at the master's level. That may astonish you, but it's really the market. And the market means here hiring managers and HR people, human resources people. They know the PMP, but they don't know, the best bet is to have both of those. But if you want marketability, PMP is the way to go. Next month, PMI publishes these numbers you're looking at in a journal called PMI Today. As of last month, there were 600,000 PMPs in the world. Now, you might think to be higher. This exam has been around for 30 years. Well, this is somewhat of a self-selecting exam. I can tell you, I'll be honest with you, this test is very hard, and every type of test like this is somebody's going to fail. Because if everybody passes, then there's no validity to the exam, or as much as they'd like. So there is a curve. Now, if that scares you off, you should at least have a healthy respect for the exam. And those people that have failed aren't well prepared. You need to be prepared like for any exam. But it's a pretty healthy number. And you'll see there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a 6th certification, very new, portfolio management. These other ones, there's a program management one, very few people, very high bar to get into that. Program management, risk, scheduling, and this is agile. We don't really talk about agile, but they're different ones. This CAPM we'll talk about, so bear with me and we'll get to that. So we're talking about PMP and somewhat the CAPM, but they all require experience and education as well as passing an exam, so all of them have a pretty high bar. The reason I said the PGPM, the program management, was a higher bar, if you go for the program management one, what they do is they ask you to provide 12 people who can vouch for the fact that you did the work you said you could do. 12 people. That's why the higher bar. It's very hard to find that for a lot of people.